And good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host for this morning. So thank you so much for joining us here on this Tell It All Tuesday. So let's get into it. Yeah, so Tell It All Tuesday is just one of those days that I want to get into and just kind of, throw more than just one video up on screen, right? We are really going to get into some articles that I've come across, some things that, are going on in our nation's history. We'll definitely hit all sides, but this is something that I wanted to bring to you guys' attention. So let's get into our first article.
Telling this committee that the Biden administration, while they were letting all of these unaccompanied minors into the country, and as we've talked about today, they weren't keeping track of them, they issued these kids a hotline that they could call if they had trouble with the sponsor family that they were put with. And you're saying that 65,000 calls to this hotline designated to protect these kids went unanswered? Is that what you're telling this committee?
Yes, sir. Those calls spanned from, complaints about stale bread all the way to being abused, to one case where a child's call was reporting that grown men were coming into his room at night and they were touching him. Nothing happened with that call. That call went unanswered. I said that it was easier to get a child, yes, than to adopt a dog. You actually had to provide more paperwork to adopt a pet from a pet shelter than you did to sponsor a child.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today on how NGOs facilitated the Biden border crisis. You can see our colleagues are very upset that we're having this hearing today. They don't want to talk about this stuff. They don't want to talk about the 300,000 kids that we still don't know where they are. They're upset that President Trump got elected. They're upset that he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and we're backing him up here in Congress. This is what the American people voted for because they saw 4 years of the carnage that these open border policies plagued on the United States. And we're talking about the NGOs that they used as middlemen to carry out their operations, like the Catholic charities they used to facilitate, normalize, and accelerate illegal immigration into this country. Ms. Hopper, you've worked closely with trafficking victims and survivors. I'd like to explore the role that the NGOs have played in enabling the trafficking and exploitation of unaccompanied alien children. Under the last administration, what safeguards were put in place to protect vulnerable unaccompanied children?
I previously discussed the post-placement welfare checks, which consisted of 2 phone calls. Again, if the sponsor didn't answer, the case was no longer followed up on. But there was also a notice of concern hotline where people could report concerns about the unaccompanied child's safety. But what this administration found was from August 2023 to January of 2025, 65,000 calls went unanswered. Those calls spanned from complaints about stale bread all the way to being abused, to one case where a child's call was reporting that grown men were coming into his room at night and they were touching him. Nothing happened with that call. That call went unanswered until this administration took office went through those 65,000 calls, made follow-ups, conducted a welfare check, and now that child has been rescued and that sponsor has been arrested. These are the safeguards that were put in place, but accountability and oversight was not had.
So you're telling this committee that the Biden administration, while they were letting all of these unaccompanied minors into the country, and as we've talked about today, they weren't keeping track of them, they issued these kids a hotline that they could call if they had trouble with the sponsor family that they were put with. And you're saying that 65,000 calls to this hotline designated to protect these kids went unanswered? Is that what you're telling this committee?
Yes, sir.
Wow. That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I believe you also said, Ms. Hopper, that according to your research, it was easier to adopt a pet or a dog than it was to get one of these children. Is that what you said?
I said that it was easier to get a child, yes, than to adopt a dog. You actually had to provide more paperwork to adopt a pet from a pet shelter than you did to sponsor a child.
Yeah, and think about it, guys. This is exactly why the American people are so upset. This is why they voted for the president, and this is why they voted for this agenda, to not only remove people from this country, to secure our borders, but to find these kids. I mean, this is completely atrocious in a day and age where we're starting to wake up to the realities of sex trafficking and what's going on with these kids. They let all these kids in. We still don't know where over 300,000 of these kids are. And you're sitting here testifying, saying that they gave a hotline for these kids to report if they were okay, if they needed anything, and 65,000 calls went unanswered. Do you know how many staffers the administration assigned to answering these phones and helping these kids?
One.
One staffer? Any idea how many hours a day this staffer was working?
No.
Maybe that's why there were 65,000 calls that weren't answered from these little kids, huh? Unbelievable. Thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. McGyver, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to start off by just advising that witnesses should definitely come here with the facts. One of the witnesses today stated that I was arrested, and that's a complete lie, and I want to put that on the record. Mr. Chairman, this hearing is a shame, a sham, and a complete disgrace. Just because Republicans don't want to see it doesn't mean it's not true. The charities the majority is targeting are doing the Lord's work, quite literally. Republicans are trying to misrepresent and undermine and attack the work of these charities due to assist the most vulnerable and underserved, all while quoting scripture from the Bible. No matter what narrative my colleagues across the aisle try to spin, the truth is that these religious organizations and other nonprofits are not political. They seek to provide aid to those who are fleeing violence and seeking asylum. To every person working at the charities, religious organizations, and other NGOs that are the subject of this hearing, I say this to you: thank you, and I am sorry. Thank you for providing the services and resources that our government has failed to provide to desperate people who are in need. And I am sorry that Republicans are trying to intimidate you and prevent you from carrying out this critical work. I am appalled that this hearing is being used as an attempt to target religious organizations and prevent them from serving their communities in accordance with their faith. Meanwhile, the Republican majority has not done an ounce of oversight of the Trump administration, even as Trump and his administration tear apart DHS. In January, Trump installed unelected billionaire Elon Musk as the leader of Doge and empowered him to derail and demonize critical functions across the government, including at DHS. Elon has long had massive unexplained ties to China. He did not file any kind of financial disclosure, even as he took a role in overhauling the federal government. But did the Republican majority demand any information on Musk's conflicts? Did they ask questions about his ties to the Chinese government, a topic that draws their interest in just about every context every week on this committee? No, they did not. Instead, they turned a blind eye to Doge installed unqualified staffers across DHS, gained access to sensitive security systems, and drove off untold members of dedicated civil servants carrying out important missions to secure our homeland. Doge has been dismantling and reshaping DHS for 6 months now. Has the Republican majority held a single hearing or called a single witness to examine these massive changes to the department? No, they have not. More recently, Elon Musk and Donald Trump had a very messy breakup. Perhaps men are just too fragile and emotional for these jobs. But I digress. We did, in fact, learn a few things during this breakup. On June 6, Musk tweeted, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day. DJT." Wow, now that's some inside information. Elon Musk, Donald Trump's right-hand man, who spent hundreds of millions of dollars to help get Trump elected, says the president is tied to the notorious child sex predator. And look what we're talking about today. And indeed, over the past several days, Trump has moved to permanently squash the release of the Epstein files. Now, my Republican colleagues have long expressed a desire to fight human trafficking. Woohoo, talking about it today, but yet scared to call out to ask the administration to release the Epstein files. Surely that must be something we can all get behind. Surely we can all agree that if Elon Musk has evidence that Donald Trump is or has ever been involved in child sex trafficking, then Musk should be compelled to come share his evidence with this committee and the public. Now, I'm sure some of my colleagues may argue that Musk is just blowing smoke, but who's to say? Let's find out. I might have my doubts, but if you think that under oath Musk would admit he does not actually have any evidence to back up his claims, then great, let's find out. Let's do some real work on this committee. With that, I yield back.
Yes. So I
That call
find
went-
it fascinating that we have people in our legislature that cannot speak on their own. I mean, she literally read that all from a piece of paper. But I want to send some shouts out. Thank you so much, Sassy Lady, for joining us. And she says, "Good morning, everyone." And to Dr. C, greetings, founder. Good morning to you, Dr. C, and to all my Black American family. And thank you so much, Dr. C, for reposting the stream. So yes, we're doing Tell It All Tuesday. And I really wanted to just take the time to point that out and how disgusting it is that this woman pointed out that there was a child that was being molested. There were 65,000 calls that went unanswered. They had one person managing these calls, and all she wants to do is politically grandstand about Donald Trump and saying, well, he's tied to Epstein. Well, if he is, ma'am, demand the documents. You're in the legislature. Like, there are some things that you actually can't put a demand on. But see, the Democrats were real super quiet until, that little spat between Elon and Donald Trump, which Elon actually did apologize in public. I don't know if anybody ever remembered him doing that because the news cycle goes so fast and people just don't care. But at the end of the day, we have still over 300,000 children. Where are the babies? And what's happened to them? And why haven't there been more investigations? Why weren't there investigations going on during the Biden administration? That's what I want to find out. They put Mayorkas on the hot seat about this, and he had nothing. Nothing. Democrats, when you had the majority, you did nothing. Absolutely nothing for these babies. And you want to sit there and grandstand and try to make this about Donald Trump and Elon Musk? Are you really? I'm really hoping that she goes to jail. I really do hope that she goes to prison for what she did. I want her to lose her seat. I want her in prison as a member of, as a civilian, as a citizen of this country, I do not want to see anybody like her in office. It's a disgrace. Sorry, I got emotional. But being a abuse survivor myself, to have it downplayed and say, "Oh, well, these people are doing the Lord's work." Are they? Where are the babies? And what about the children that have been abused? What about that? Why aren't you investigating that? But you want to sit there and grandstand. Oh, you don't want to talk about that $12 billion that Congress set aside for unaccompanied minor aliens that were trafficked to these NGOs that, I'm sorry, they were not doing the Lord's work, ma'am. They weren't. They were trafficking in human beings. That's what they did. And they were paid with our tax dollars to do it, by the way. It's just disgusting. It is truly disgusting. I wanted to start off with that because, again, we really don't get a broad spectrum of what's happening. And so I did pull it up, and I wanted to pull up the Biden calls being ignored and just drop down to here. It says, the hotline originally established as a safeguard during the Trump administration that was put in before Trump left office. So this was during the 2016 term when he was 45. Oh, Black Power, thank you so much for reposting this stream. It says, was intended for children or the public to report safety concerns ranging from poor living conditions to severe abuse. Hopper stated that while the policy appeared effective on paper, it failed in practice due to the inadequate implementation and oversight. She emphasized that many abuse cases, including one where a child was reported being molested, were only discovered and acted upon after a backlog review, not in real time. So as she stated, once the Biden administration came in and said, oh my gosh, what happened to these calls? And they actually followed up on the calls and they actually did their job, right? That they found out all of this was going on. And this is just one that we know about. There were thousands of children. There were children, I want to say, that were reported on in Texas. They were living like 30 or 40 to an apartment. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. 30 or 40 to an apartment. And girls were being prostituted by who somebody said that, oh, this is your aunt, right? And, some of these kids didn't know it. And they said on camera, I don't know what this person is. Yeah, they did that. They created a whole nother humanitarian crisis. And I guarantee you, within the next 2 or 3 years, we'll find out about it. We will. And it happened under the Biden administration. They trafficked in all of these people. They were trafficked and we paid for it. And when I see politicians grandstanding like the representative from Newark, New Jersey, it's just disheartening because we're better than this. We truly are. We really, really are. Okay, so I'm going to get to the next video.
Jasmine Crockett.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone that is here. It's hot, so I'm going to do my best not to be repetitive, but make sure that I can bring out some additional points. Okay. So I want to point out, because a lot of people don't fully understand what gerrymandering is. I want to give you some numbers because I want to make sure that we are clear on exactly what they're trying to do. In this last presidential election, Donald Trump won the state of Texas by 56.2 percentage points. But when we look at currently what the congressional maps look like, we have a total of 25 Republicans out of the 38 seats. That represents 65% of the state. Now, what are they proposing to do as it relates to our districts? They want to take it up to 79% of the representation in a state in which a president only earned 56. Was it 56? Yes, approximately 56%. That is what gerrymandering is. It's the same thing we saw in North Carolina that used to have a congressional delegation that was 7-7. Ultimately, Trump won that state almost by about 50%. And we know that statewide, when we looked at those other seats, guess who won? Democrats. It's a 50-50 state. But right now, the congressional delegation in North Carolina, it's 10 Republicans and 4 Democrats. They're talking about they're starting to cheat. They've been cheating. Right now, we should be in power. We should be the ones that are controlling the House. We should be the ones that had the ability to subpoena Elon Musk.
Now, what she said was scary, true, but scary. She was like, we should be in power. Do you want this person in power? See, that's why you lost. Do you see what you're doing? Like, sometimes I just need Jasmine to wake up and look in the mirror and go, this is why you lost. Because you only care about power. You don't care about the people. You're talking about, we want to take down Elon. Nobody wants to hear that anymore, ma'am. No one. And good morning, Black Flag. Thank you so much. He says, have a wonderful day, Black America. Enjoy. Thank you so much. And Black Empower, thank you so much for reposting the stream. Yeah, nobody wants to do this with you, Jasmine. But I'm gonna let her finish.
We should be the ones that have the ability to subpoena these Epstein files. Let me tell you something. They don't want the truth to come out. They are so far from being interested in transparency. And frankly, we know that the Republicans have abdicated their duties as relates to those in the House as well as the Senate. And they know we won't back down. So I got news for them. As they sit up here and think that they're about to win, let me tell you, they are playing the game known as the biggest loser. And the biggest one sits in the White House. And baby, the baby loser right here is down there below them. They will lose because the people are speaking out and they are showing up. It is the same reason the Republicans don't want to go into their districts and talk to the people, because they know that their policies are loser policies. They are losers. I'm going to tell you, if it's one group of people that's not going to lose, it is going to be us, because we are going to fight this every step of the way. And so I want to thank those governors that have already made it clear that if you want to fight fire with fire, we got something for you. So thank you to Gavin Newsom, who said, play with Texas if you want to, because we can play with California. I thank you to the governor in New Jersey who said it's not necessarily off the table. I thank you to any Democratic governor who has tried to be fair with the lines that they have drawn. But right now, fairness is not anything that this administration is familiar with. The law isn't anything that this administration is familiar with. The only thing that they know how to do is be crooked, draw crooked lines, and tell crooked lies. So I am here to tell you that if you think that you can just roll over the Democrats, it is a new day. And I am looking forward to making sure that we can respond in kind if they want to play, because we already know that our lines are already jacked up. I already gave you the numbers. You can play with them more if you want to. But just know I'm going to spend every waking day until now, between now and November, to make sure that not only these new seats that you try to draw, if that's what you try to do, that we win those seats, but maybe it's time for us to take some other seats that are sitting up here right now, because they're not doing their jobs anyway. So just know I will not rest, because this is not what democracy looks like, but we're going to show you what it looks like. Thank you.
Okay. And that's probably the reason why she's not on the committee that she ran for, but I digress. So we're going to just talk about it, because I asked the question. I said, what are the demographics, just within her district? And so she's got the ethnicity. Let's see. She's a District 30. There's over 700,000 people, 771, 661 as of 2023. The district is predominantly Black American, 40%. It's interesting. It says Black or African American, non-Hispanic. So they're definitely starting to delineate the words, because they know that Black Americans are not African. They're starting to get that. 36% Hispanic, right? 2 races, including Hispanic, 11% white, 10% other, 17% white non-Hispanic. So it's interesting because there are Hispanics that identify as white, but they're not white. They're technically Hispanic. That's why it says white Hispanic. So technically, if we're going to be technical about it, the majority in her district are Hispanic. They're not blacks. But the way that the numbers are broken up, it makes it look that way. Right? And so then you've got 17% that are white, non-Hispanic, so they are Europeans. You've got 3% Asian. You've got 2% that identify as two or more other races, and 0.07% as a completely other race. And those are people that are like Pacific Islanders, possibly of Middle Eastern descent, people that might be Hawaiian or Samoan, right? Because it doesn't have Pacific Islander on here. So just throwing that in. And Sassy Lady says, greetings indeed. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for reposting the stream. So I didn't want to really get into the median age or income. What I wanted to do, and it says the district is overwhelmingly urban, with 98% of its population living in urban areas and only 1.4% in rural areas. So it's very dense population. So you've got a lot of apartments. There are houses including in there, but it's very congested. Urban communities are congested. Rural communities, that's where you've got people, that have maybe 1 or 2 acres of land, or more. And they're just kind of living out amongst themselves. They're chilling, right? Yeah. So Congress, because I asked another question, I said, why is she so concerned about redistricting for her district? What is this thing? What is it? So Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has expressed concern about redistricting because proposed changes could significantly alter the demographic and political composition of Texas 30th Congressional District that she represents. So it could mess her up, which is what she was talking about in that video. It's always interesting to me because she always wants to put people down. They're not doing their jobs. It's like, ma'am, there were Democrats who are still walking away from the party to this day. And it's July. There's so many walkaway videos. Just saying. And they're not walking to the Republican Party, by the way. They're walking to independent parties like mine. And what I find fascinating, just the conjecturing, they're not doing their jobs. Really? They're not doing their jobs? But the economy's getting better. Gas prices are getting better. Grocery prices, we still need to do a better job there, but they're better. People are getting back to work. People don't have to worry about their children being mentally raped at school. We're getting back to being men and women. You act like the Biden administration did such a wonderful bang out job. Baby, no. It was destroying the country literally from the inside out. Telling young people to get their body parts chopped off so they could be happy. Are you for real right now? That's what your party did. That lays at your feet every day. And to call saying somebody else is derelict in their duty, stop that. Yeah, I'm going to tell it like it is because it's Tell It All Tuesday. So the district has historically been majority Black and Democratic stronghold. Okay. So centered in Dallas and encompassing parts of Dallas County. It was created to ensure fair representation for communities of color under the Voting Rights Act. Crockett and other advocates worry that redistricting plans, often influenced by partisan interests, could dilute the voting power of these communities through tactics like cracking, spreading minority voters across multiple districts, or packing, concentrating them into fewer districts, potentially weakening their ability to elect candidates of their choice. Here's my thing. You can elect any candidate you want to. I don't care how spread out people are. The problem gets back to, are these candidates servants of the people or not? Or are they just serving their party and getting your vote? That's a total different thing. If somebody's advocating for your vote, but they're not doing anything for you, they're not serving you. And that's how politicians need to be looked at. That's how these candidates need to be looked at. Okay. If you are not serving the people, but you are definitely serving your party, then you're not for us. And that's what it's going to come back to. I don't care how big or small, because you can't take people's votes. You're like, well, they're going to take our votes away. No, they can't take your votes away. If you still concentrate your votes, even if y'all are all spread out, you can get people in office that you want to get in office. Stop that. You just want people wrangled in and making it feel like they're forced to vote for you. Because where I live in Henry County, there are people who do not agree with the Democrats, but if they want to run for elected office, they'll run as a Democrat because they want to get the votes, which is stupid. In my opinion, it is the dumbest thing. And I'm always telling people, if you're a Republican, right, I will never win it as a Republican in this city. Why not? Why are you more about the party than you are about serving the people? What is wrong with you? Have you lost your minds? Yeah. Again, this is Tell It All Tuesday. So in recent redistricting cycles, Texas has faced legal challenges over allegations of racial and partisan gerrymandering. Crockett has voiced opposition to maps that could undermine equitable representation, emphasizing the importance of preserving districts where minority communities have a meaningful voice in elections. Her concerns reflect broader national debates about voting rights, racial equity, and democratic fairness in the redistricting process. Here's my thing about the redistricting. If people want you as their representative, no matter what party they're from, they'll vote for you. It's so redistricting shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter because your district is still going to be there. You're just be like, well, we're going to have less votes. How are you going to have less votes? If people want you, they'll vote for you. It doesn't matter. They could cut 10,000 people out of your district. Are those 10,000 people voting for you or not? That's the thing that bothers me. It's like, we need all this concentrated power for what? You abused it. You didn't use it. You used it to lord it over the people and suppress it and suppress people. Really? It's crazy. Insane. Let's go to the next video.
Specifically deciding to splinter the communities of common interest, as well as just blatantly say we are going to dilute minority voices. So we know that the courts, ever since we've had a Voting Rights Act, have always found this state to be intentionally discriminatory. That is what they are going to do. So I need people of color to understand that the scheme of the Republicans has consistently been to make sure that they mute our voices so that they can go ahead and have an oversized say in this. So I fully anticipate that's exactly where they're going with this map. It's the only way to do it. We didn't understand how we got to the map that they gave us last time because that state was grown by 95% people of color. They went out of their way.
Okay. Now she keeps talking about people of color, people of color. I showed you the demographics, right? Let me just bring this up again. I don't know. It won't let me do it. I got to remove the media before. But I did show you the demographics talking about how the Hispanic, they're the majority. They are not the minority. And she's talking about it grew by 95%. Illegals. You never say if these people are citizens or not. You just say they're people of color. I'm tired of that phrase. Stop using it. You're either a citizen of this country or you are not, regardless of your ethnicity. Last I checked, I'm an American. People of color. If you don't stop, the troping is just outstanding.
To make sure that we got 0 new seats for people of color.
0 new seats for people of color. Stop it with the people of color thing. It is so dated. But anyway, So what I was trying to make sure this is that. Okay, it's a 175. Okay, so here she keeps talking about people of color, people of color. Guess what? Hispanics are 47% of the ethnic breakdown. So what's she talking about? Oh, but you got to do it this way. You got to say people of color, right? So you can encompass everybody, because you're not talking about fighting for Black Americans. You never have. You don't. You use us. You use us. And that's what the Democratic Party is definitely good at. So Black Empower says communities of common interest is their new catchphrase. Yeah. Communities of common interest. Interesting. And Miss Sassy says, definitely born in the USA. Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for reposting the stream, Sassy Lady. And Cajun Lady, thank you so much for reposting the stream. So yeah, communities of common interest. They have to have a catchphrase because they have nothing else. Now, have you guys heard anything about what the Democrats want to do for us? Because that's what I'm waiting for. That's the argument I'm waiting for. Are you going to do more to make sure that we have better electricity grids? Right? Let's talk about it. Because in California, they're still having rolling blackouts because there's so much pressure on the electric grid because all of the other optional green energy they're using can't back it up. It's not properly backing up the electrical grid, so they have rolling blackouts. So what are you going to do about that? Crickets. They have nothing. What are you going to do about the economy since you're always claiming it's so horrible? What's your plan? See, everybody's got a complaint, but they don't have a plan. And I'm into, action and making changes and actually doing something. Let's resolve this. Let's fix this. But this yelling back and forth, because see, what people don't understand is the mindset of the American people is changing. We're no longer going to vote for people arguing with other people. We're going to vote based on your record. What did you do? What did you contribute? And how has it changed my life? That's it. What did you do? What did you contribute? How did it change my life? Because if it's making my life worse, you're not going back to office, period. You're only going to get back in office if my life is better. And you'll stay in office if my life is better. But we want to get people in office that want to say, you know what? We need to make something called term limits. And we need to make sure that you're not staying here and dying on the House floor. Just saying. Just saying. All right. I got one more video for you guys. And then we're going to take a short break.
I am Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. I am also testifying on behalf of the people of Texas 30 and frankly all the people that have any sense or any compassion in the state of Texas. Now, it seems like we have consistently heard the refrain that Michael Jackson used to sing of why? And so I just want to be clear because I have an opportunity to see so many people that I serve with. And unlike the chair, I actually do recall a number of things, such as the fact that the state was grown by 95% people of color. I also recall, and I'm old enough to remember, when Texas lawmakers took pride in not being D.C. I'm old enough to remember how you ignored the voices of people during the last redistricting. I'm old enough to remember that we were assured that we would have our own map done from the Texas House, yet we didn't. Instead, we took the Texas Senate map. I'm old enough to remember that we were assured that we would have 2 new seats, one in the DFW area and one in the Harris-Fort Bend area. I am old enough to remember that we acknowledged that the Latino community absolutely was entitled to another seat under the Voting Rights Act. I am old enough to remember.
She's interesting, but I wanted to take this comment up. And Cajun Lady says, I'm so tired of the division these performers put out. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Black Empire says, I suggest researching the voting record before giving them your vote. Absolutely. And we should do that. We should definitely put more emphasis on, okay, so how did you vote, right? Let's pull up your record. They have, was it track.gov? where you can track the politicians. I've brought that up before. They also have open secrets. You can look at that. You can go to congress.gov and pull all of them up and pull up the records, what bills they sponsored, even if they've written any bills, because some of them haven't. Just saying. They're there collecting a paycheck. They got nominated. You know what I'm saying? They got in office. They have some place of authority. But what are they really doing for the American people? And Cajun lady says, 100. Yeah. We want people that want to do the work. We do not want people who want to perform. Right.
When we fought the current maps, because while 95% of the growth was due to people of color, not only did they create 2 new Anglo majority seats that are approximately 766,000 people each, y'all paired the 9th and 18th congressional districts, and we had to fight to unpair them. I am old enough to remember that I testified in court about a month ago, and the state took the position that they didn't consider race when they created the maps that we're currently sitting under. I am old enough to remember that this legislature has consistently been found to be intentionally racially discriminatory in the drawing of its maps ever since the Voting Rights Act was enacted. I am also old enough to remember that it was a great Texan that signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965 into law. So,
please finish your testimony.
To comply with the Voting Rights Act, we should have 60% of the seats that allow people of color to elect their representatives. That would be 24 seats. Instead, we currently only have 14. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. I am asking you, in the words of MLK, where will you stand?
Thank you for your testimony.
And here's my thing with that. Again, regardless of your race, because you only want to use race when it's convenient, right? People should vote for you. Period. The Democrats have continued to use race as a weapon. But when it's used against them, they get upset. It's like, well, you wanted to have the race conversation, so let's go. Let's do this. But when it's not in your favor, then it's like, oh, no, you're being a racist. Okay, because it's not in your favor. Stop. People are tired. I don't care if somebody is purple. Are you going to do the job? That's all I'm saying. Do your job. Do your job for the American people that are citizens of this country. That's all I'm saying. That's what I want. I don't care your ethnic background. I don't. Now, can I coalesce with other people of my ethnic background and say, hey, we need to learn and we need to grow and we need to build ourselves up here and there? Yeah, absolutely. I want to work with people that look like me. And I also work with people that don't look like me. I think everybody does that. But when it comes to the election process and you're saying, well, we're not as represented. Okay. Well, then maybe there need to be people of stature voted in as opposed to them being people of color. Right? As opposed to the race thing, because it always comes back to, well, white people, they always want to carry the majority in this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, doesn't mean you got to vote for them, right? I'm just saying. There are people that are Caucasian, and I prefer the word Caucasian because white just seems silly to me, just like, when people say black, but I am a Black American. But when I say white, I'm like, it kind of, to me, it's weird. I'm like, you're Caucasian, but that's just me. Look, we want people to do the job, a good job. And regardless of the redistricting or not, regardless of your congressional seats or not, people need to vote to ensure the safety of others, right? That we have the best governing bodies in the states that we can have. Now, we have certain states that they don't care about American citizens. And they are allowing their states to be run into the ground, literally run into the ground. And it needs to stop. Who's going to stop them? Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to run. Somebody's got to stand up and do what's right. But I also wanted to just look at this really quickly before we take our break. Because I said, why are the Democrats so upset, about this? Democrats are not being denied redistricting. Rather, they are actively considering and preparing for mid-cycle redistricting in response to Republican-led efforts, particularly in Texas. So this is why we're on the map on this. So Democrats are concerned that Republican states like Texas are redrawing congressional maps to gain partisan advantage, potentially costing Democrats several House seats in the 2026 midterms. In response, Democratic leaders, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, are exploring options to redraw maps in Democratic controlled states such as California, New York, New Jersey, Minnesota, and Washington to counterbalance these gains. So this is about their political party power. This is not about the people. You don't care. I guess that's the part that really just, as they say, grinds my gears. It does. So this strategy, however, is legally and politically complex, especially in states like California that use independent redistricting commissions designed to limit partisan influence. Democrats argue they must respond in kind to what they see as Republican efforts to rig the midterm elections. As Rep. Greg Meek stated, you can't go to a fight where they have a gun and you have a knife. California Governor Gavin Newsom has also signaled openness to countermeasures, stating any action would depend on Texas moving forward first. While some Democrats support this aggressive stance, others, particularly progressives, and we all know what that leads to, are uneasy, fearing it undermines voting rights, principles, and sets a dangerous precedent for continuous map manipulation. Civil rights groups warn that such tit-for-tat redistricting could weaken protections for minority communities under the Voting Rights Act and erode public trust in democratic processes. Yeah, and it does. I mean, that just on its face, it does. And it is truly sad. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I've got a couple more videos for you guys. We're going to get into it. And, it is Tell It All Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, Eastern Standard Time. And my name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols. And Cajun Lady says that's why millions of foreign illegals were imported into the U.S. This was also the new voters, right? They're pissed because they are being removed. Yeah, they're being removed. And they are so it's almost like, can you imagine a 2-year-old having a temper tantrum in the middle of the floor? Like, that's what I see with them politically, like just the whining. If anybody wants to make some baby videos, because I enjoy them. I don't know how to make them, but I truly enjoy them. Yeah, they are off the rails right now because their voting bloc is leaving. But the interesting thing about that is that, and I'm not trying to just focus on one community, but predominantly people that are Hispanic or Latino, they tend to vote Republican. They don't vote Democrat. They just don't. There's a lot of immigrants that have come here the right way. And they also vote Republican. They don't vote Democrat because they're trying to get away from that socialist stuff. And they see it in the Democrat Party and they don't want any parts of it. So as much as they keep crying for this, it's like, you're going to lose. Like the people that you even want to keep here, even though they're here illegally, they are not going to vote for you. You're going to flip your own districts. But you're trying to go about it the wrong way. That's why I do appreciate the bill that Marjorie Taylor Greene is putting forth, where in the census, she wants a separation of those who are U.S. citizens and those who aren't. Because right now, it just goes by population based on whatever area you're in. And if you have a larger population, you get more of the seats. This is what Jasmine Crockett's upset about, because she's like, okay, if we get more seats, they should go to us. And the Texas is like, no, they're not just automatically going to go to you because you want them. They're upset. And it's crazy. And I'm okay with it. Okay, so we're going to get into our next article.
Lowndes County frustrations are fueling among residents. In 2023, millions of federal dollars in federal funding was secured to address the issue of sewage. But earlier this year, the Trump administration terminated that deal. Our Simon Schuessler was in Hayville today, where protesters say that termination is unjust.
We will continue to press forward.
Dozens of activists gathering in Hayville on an early Saturday morning, urging the Trump administration to reinstate millions in federal funding to fix the Lowndes County sewage crisis.
As in a matter of a stroke of a pen, $26 million was canceled that was promised 2 years ago. And the word that came to me, that's an atrocity. How would you like to grow up in raw sewage in your front yard or in your backyard, and then the infestation of diseases that may come for that?
Now. Protesters marching to the county courthouse, brandishing signs with messages like everyone deserves good sanitation and flush injustice, not our future. State Senator Robert Stewart helping lead the crowd just days after testifying about the situation to the United States Senate.
We have gone from a war on poverty to a war on the poor, and we cannot take this lightly.
The Trump administration has cited the cuts were due to the funding being a diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI initiative. Protesters say this shouldn't be political. It's about respecting each other's human rights.
It is a very misguided step. There's no DEI in the soil.
People have the right to, housing, clean water, not walk outside and have to walk through sewage.
Hookworm is actually a third world country disease, and it should not be happening in a first world country.
A push for Lowndes County to take a step in the right direction. Simon Schuessler, WSFA 12 News, Lowndes County.
Before the funding was cut, the Alabama Department of Public Health planned to install around 60 septic systems in Lowndes County by the end of 2026.
Now, my whole thing is, why can't you still do that? I mean, why can't your state still do that? Why do you need the federal government? Where's the funding within your own state to do that? Because obviously this is a state issue, right? It is a state issue. Now, there are other programs out there that you actually can apply for if you need federal funding for your state, if it's beyond, right, your state. But some of those implementations, when they were talking about, I want to say it was the Stacey Abrams $2 billion EPA thing that they did, and there were other grants that were out there, but the language was DEI language. It was like, okay, you have to be a Black community, you have to be this, you have to be, and it was like, no, why can't you just be a community in Alabama, in Lowndes County, that needs your sewer fixed and your state can't afford it, so you're reaching out to the federal government for help? That's the thing. Stop bringing race into this. Stop it. This is where people got to realize it's like, okay, we're in a situation, we can't afford this as a state. It's well beyond us. Is there a grant that's available to help us? Period. This is our issue. But you want to bring race into it and people of color and all these other things that get in the way. And the current administration is like, we're not doing the DEI thing. And I agree with them on that. They shouldn't. They absolutely shouldn't. Because it should not be based on that. This should be based on what you need, because you are people in need. You don't necessarily have to be people of color to be people in need. That's all I'm saying. And Cajun Lady says, this is happening to all of us. Hardship doesn't discriminate. Absolutely. It absolutely doesn't. Anybody can be on hard times. Really? So it says dozens of activists gathered in Hayneville, Alabama on Saturday, July 27th, to urge the Trump administration to reinstate federal funding for the ongoing sewage crisis in Lowndes County. The funding, amounting to $26 million, was part of a 2023 agreement between the Biden administration and Alabama officials to address failing sanitation infrastructure, but was terminated in 2025 by the U.S. Department of Justice under the Trump administration. Now, that's interesting that the Department of Justice had to come in to a situation where they had failing sanitation structure. That's interesting to me. So prosecutors, including State Senator Robert Stewart and faith leaders like Pastor Ang's Lover, marched to the county courthouse with signs reading, "Everyone deserves good sanitation and flush justice, not our future," emphasizing that access to proper sanitation is a human right, not a political issue. Yeah, and it shouldn't be a political issue. So what's going on? So the Trump administration justified the cancellation by citing an executive order that ended federal programs related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if this program itself fell under DEI, that's why it got canceled. It didn't get canceled because it was just canceled. See, all of the DEI measures propped up a lot of things that it shouldn't have. Sorry, I'm hitting my microphone. And when it did that, it propped it up on something that could be dismantled. So these individuals, the political, people that are helping the senators or whatever, they should have never gotten something based on a program like that. That's their fault. And I fault them for that. They should have looked at something that was based on infrastructure and failing infrastructure, right? You get the money, you fix the failing infrastructure. But my question is, why isn't this coming from the state? Why isn't the state fixing their infrastructure? Like, you have people that pay state taxes, property taxes. You have money flowing through your state. Like, what's going on? Where's Tuberville? I'm just saying. Where's Tuberville? He's in Alabama. So activists and organizers, including Mahatu Al-Khattabi, a Faith in Action in Alabama, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, and environmental advocate Catherine Flowers, rejected this rationale, arguing that the crisis is a matter of public health and environmental justice. Stop that. This is why you don't have the money. Environmental justice? No, you have a failing infrastructure. That's why you need the money. Use your words wisely. But see, when you use all of this conjecture and all of these buzzwords and get your feelings involved, now you don't have the money. This is why you don't have the money. The grants are out there that say if you have a failing infrastructure in your state, there's billions of dollars out there that you can get it. Get out of your feelings. Get out of your way. Stop talking about environmental justice. That's stupid. Stop putting a DEI program for failing infrastructure. Are you okay? This is what we're doing Tell It All Tuesday. I'm not trying to get upset, but I'm just, okay. So hookworm is a disease associated with impoverished regions and has been detected in residents, underscoring the severity of the sanitation failures. Yes, again, go to your state. Your state should be funding this. And yeah, Alabama, sorry, you don't have the best record when it comes to how you guys deal with yourselves racially. You just don't. You have a bad record. I don't want to say not my fault, not my problem, but I need y'all to fix it. You have a bad record of discriminating against certain people because of the way they look. Fix it. Fix your problem. You guys need to talk to each other. You need to get this resolved. Fix it. Stop getting all emotional in your feelings. Find somebody that will best represent you to get the negotiations going and get it done. That's it. Because sitting back, crying and whining about it and walking to the courthouse, that's not fixing your water. It's not. Finding another grant at the state or federal level, that's what's going to get this fixed. And stop bringing DEI and environmental justice into it. Stop that. That's not working anymore. Get off that train. It has not even been parked. It's been completely derailed, taken off the tracks. They don't exist anymore. Let it go. So before funding was cut, the Alabama Department of Public Health planned to install around 60 septic systems in Loudoun County by the end of 2026. The area located in Alabama's predominantly black belt suffers from high poverty rates and soil conditions unsuitable for standard septic systems, leaving hundreds of families without reliable sanitation. Despite the termination, state health officials stated they would continue efforts as long as funding remains available, which means funding can be found. This can be found. And with these impoverished areas, like, what are the people there doing? Like, what else can you do to bring your community up and to make it better? Right? What businesses can be started? What initiatives can come about? Like I said, there are still grants and federal funding that can be used to build up your towns and cities. Fix it. I understand that you have to, make your voices heard, but let's get this fixed. It can be done. Because I said, why did the Trump administration say there were DEI programs tied to the funding? Because I was curious. So it said the Trump administration justified the cancellation of federal funding and termination of settlement agreement aimed at resolving the sewage crisis in Loudoun County, Alabama, by citing President Trump's Executive Order 14151, which directs federal agencies to end diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. So if this was a part of a DEI initiative, that's why it got canceled. Again, it was propped up on something that wasn't good. The administration characterized the 2023 Environmental Justice Agreement between the U.S. Department of Justice and the Alabama Department of Public Health as a DEI program, despite its focus on addressing public health crisis in a predominantly Black rural community. Assistant Attorney General Harmet K. Dillon stated the DOJ will no longer push environmental justice as viewed through a distorting DEI lens, asserting that taxpayer resources should be used in accordance with the national interest rather than what the administration deemed arbitrary criteria. The DOJ's termination of the agreement followed a memo from Attorney General Pam Bondi rescinding Biden-era directives to prioritize environmental justice cases. Yeah, stop that. Reapply. Apply on the basis of infrastructure. Just putting it out there. Infrastructure, right? And community development. Go back with that. That's all you got to do. And Black Empower says the problem has existed for years. Why wasn't it brought up during the Biden administration? The gaslighting while Black Americans have been suffering is ridiculous. ridiculous? It is. And to their point, they brought it up during the Biden administration, but they brought it up under all of these fallacy policies, right? Environmental justice, DEI, all of these other things. I mean, I've seen grants that are disgusting, in my opinion. It's like grants based on your sexual orientation. Like, why should I get a grant based on who I'm with in a relationship? But the grants were out there. They might still be out there. I don't know. Grants if you are from another country. Seriously, yes, they have American grants for people. If you are, here from another country, we'll give you money. We'll give you a grant. Yeah. But we can't get this fixed. Again, get it fixed based on infrastructure. That is something that Donald Trump is all about. And guess what? That's something any president can get behind. That you want to restore your infrastructure, that your infrastructure is failing and you need the funding to fix your infrastructure for the community at large, for the residents there. You guys have, third world issues in a first world country. Your infrastructure needs to be fixed. There it is. Because infrastructure is something that we're always having to update here in the United States. Pipes, roads, bridges, take your pick. Just saying. These are the linguistics that need to be used to get it done if you want the money. The money's still there. Just apply for it in a different way because it's an infrastructure issue. It's not a DEI issue. It's not an environmental justice issue. It's an infrastructure issue that needs to be fixed. Come on. So critics strongly dispute this justification, arguing that the agreement was fundamentally about public health and human rights, not DEI. Then why did you say it was about infrastructure? Why is it about human rights? Why are human rights and infrastructure two different things? Okay, y'all are wild. So U.S. Representative Terry Sewell, Democratic in Alabama, emphasized that the agreement had nothing to do with DEI, stating it was designed to address a documented public health crisis where generations had lived with raw sewage in their yards. Activists and community leaders echoed this, calling the funding cut an atrocity and highlighting the presence of diseases like hookworm, typically associated with developing nations in a first world country. Prior to the termination, the agreement had led to concrete actions, including suspending criminal penalties for residents unable to afford functioning septic systems, launching public health campaigns, and initiating plans to install around 60 septic systems in the county by the end of 2026, using $26 million in federal funding. The Alabama Department of Public Health indicated it would continue working on septic system installations until existing appropriated funds expire, but will no longer be monitored for compliance by the DOJ. So Louds County Septic System Improved Program, right? It was launched by the Alabama Department of Health using federal funds to install ADPH approved septic system in Louds County, aiming to address the long-standing wastewater crisis. Black Belt Unincorporated Wastewater Program, a nonprofit organization that has installed over 100 residential septic systems in Louds County, and stated it would continue operations despite the federal agreement termination, relying on multiple grants. Okay, so they're figuring it out, but like I'm saying, if you want the $26 million back, just say you're doing it for infrastructure, because that's what you're doing it for. Just say what you're doing it for, and you can get the money back. The money's there. Just saying. Just saying. And with that, I want to talk about something else, infrastructurally wise, that we can't drop this one.
infrastructure, all the pipes are rotted, like corrosion, and they're like they started.
Rust is getting in and all the other shit. And
So yeah, it says Jackson, Mississippi has been grappling with prolonged water crisis rooted in decades of infrastructure neglect, systematic disinvestment, and environmental challenges. Below is a comprehensive overview of the current situation based on available data up to April 2025, including key issues, recent developments, and ongoing. Age and infrastructure, systematic neglect, environmental triggers, management issues. Damn.
Because Chuckway Lumbaba. Chuckway Lumbaba.
Funding and repairs. Jackson received $600 million from Congress in December 2022, with $450 million for infrastructure and $150 million for technical assistance. Mississippi is also set to receive $429 million over 5 years from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
Yeah. So, the issues in Jackson are still looming. They are still looming. So I did ask ChatGPT, I said, has the water issue in Jackson, Mississippi and Flint, Michigan gotten better? Right? And it says, as of July 2025, the water issues in Jackson, Mississippi and Flint, Michigan have seen some improvements, but challenges remain. In Jackson, water pressure was restored in September 2022, and the boil advisory was lifted, although precautions for vulnerable groups like pregnant women and children are still advised. However, the city continues to face systemic issues, including the need for significant infrastructure upgrades estimated at $1 billion. In Flint, lead levels in the water have improved, and a $626 million settlement was reached to compensate affected residents. Despite these steps, both cities still grapple with long-term effects of contamination and the need for sustained investment. So with Jackson, Mississippi, while water pressure has been restored and the boil advisory lifted, as I stated before, the city still still requires substantial infrastructure investment to fully restore its water issues. The crisis has been compared to Flint, with both cities facing challenges related to aging infrastructure and environmental justice. They need to get away from this environmental justice thing, because all they're trying to say is, okay, it's in underserved communities where they're not, getting their environment fixed and climate change and all. It's stop that. The infrastructure is poor, and what's happened in Jackson is insult to injury because of the mismanagement of funds. They've been getting the money, but they haven't been fixing the problem. Because I looked at the budget and I was like, okay, why is the majority of the budget going to the administrative cost and not going to the actual cost to fix this? That's mismanagement. And it's been going on for decades. This is an over 100-year problem in Jackson, Mississippi. Over a century. Now, outside of the city, the water's okay. But it's just the city water going into Jackson, which is a predominantly Black city. And Unc says, is the problem in Jackson only with the Black side or the entire Jackson community? No, it's just on the Black side. That's the problem. It is an issue. And I've spoken to somebody that lives there, and we've been in communication. Yeah. He said, oh, okay. Yeah. And they're working on trying to get their family out of there because it's not getting any better, but they keep being sent money. That's the crazy part. Now, you got this other situation in Alabama. They're complaining that the money was cut off. Okay, well, if you're going to do right with the money, then apply for it because it's there. It's not that the money's not there. The federal government will send you the money based on infrastructure, but don't keep trying to use these DEI buzzwords like environmental justice. That will get it canceled immediately. Like it'll be DOA on arrival if you put that word in there. Don't do it. Just saying, don't do it. So Flint, Michigan, lead levels in the water have improved and a major settlement was reached, right, as we read before. However, the long-term health impacts of lead exposure continue to affect the community. So I said, can you give me an update on the mayor in Jackson, Mississippi? So as of July 1st, John Horn is the current mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, having assumed office after winning the 2025 mayoral election. He defeated incumbent Chowok Antar Lumbama in the Democratic primary runoff as of April 22nd, 2025, and went on to win the general election on June 3rd. So they don't have their general election in November, like most of us have. So as of June, they've got a new mayor. And Sebastian Cumberbatch, thank you for reposting the stream. And Unc says, so whoever is sitting in that council seat is the problem also, that Pan-African mayor. Yeah. Well, he's no longer in the seat. He's gone. He's gone. Because I asked another question. I said, was the former mayor arrested? This is the former mayor, Chewok. Yes, the former mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, Chewok Antar Lumbama, was arrested in November of 2024. He was indicted on federal corruption charges along with 5 others, including the city contractor Stone Pigman. The charges allege that Lumbama accepted approximately $72,000 in bribes and kickbacks in exchange for directing city contracts to Pigman's company. The indictment includes counts of conspiracy, wire fraud, and violating federal program bribery statutes. Lumbama has pleaded not guilty and was released on bond. His trial is pending as of mid-2025. The case is part of a broader federal investigation into corruption within Jackson City government. And I'm grateful for that because they need to. Because like I said, they've been sent billions of dollars at this point. Yeah, I said would it be? And they still haven't fixed the infrastructure problem. It's crazy. So it said, who is the new mayor? Is he Black American? I don't know if he's Black American, but this is the new mayor. His name is John Horn. This is him right here. Horn was born February 8th, 1955 in Goodman, Mississippi. His father, Charlie, was a labor organizer with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and his mother, Willistine, was a public school cafeteria worker. His family moved to Jackson when he was 3 weeks old. He first grew up in Midtown before moving to Georgetown. He later moved to Verdun, where he spent much of his formative years. He attended Morrison Elementary School, serving as a president of his class. He graduated from Jackson Public School System. So I would say on its face, it looks like he is a Black American. It looks like he is of the soil, as they like to say. But yes, this is the new mayor, Mr. John Horn. It does not give his political affiliation, but I do think he is a Democrat. Yeah, he is a Democrat. And like I said, a lot of people, even though they run as Democrat because that is the majority. Oh, and Sebastian says, yes, he is a Black American. Okay, so and Monk says he sounds foundational. Okay, so we got that confirmation. But yes, but like I was saying before, even if he doesn't have the same political, I should say, leanings as the Democratic Party, a lot of people will run as the majority of where they're at. So let's just say if this was more majority Republican, he would have ran as a Republican, even if he didn't have the values of the Republican Party. That's all I'm saying. That's how people are doing it these days. I've ran into a lot of people that are running for political office. And, some of them that are running as Democrats is like, I really don't roll with the Democratic Party like that, but I'm running as a Democrat because, some people do because they don't want to run as a Republican. Okay. But some people do because that's the majority in a particular area. But like I said, I live in Henry County, and the county and the city are majority Democrat. Now, personally, if I were to run for political office, I'm not running, obviously, because I started my own party. But even if not starting my own party, I would just run as an independent. I would not run as a Democrat. I can't. The party itself is just destructive. They're not doing anything good for the people. I want to hear one Democrat As opposed to whining and complaining about Donald Trump, just say, this is what I would like to do. This is where I would like to see the country. Like, I would just one. April Showers, thank you so much for reposting the stream. And Unc said, sad part is 99.9% of them on that Democrat train. And they don't want to get off. Yeah, that is that. And Sebastian says, that's what happens in Texas. A lot of Democrats run as Republicans. They do. And this is why, people were like, why are Republicans voting this way? Because they're not really Republicans. They're not. The Democrats know if I run a Republicans in a red thinking state, right? I'm not going to run as a Democrat. I'll run as a Republican. I'll get that support. And that's what you call a rhino. Okay, a Republican in name only. That's what that acronym stands for, rhino. Republican in name only. Yeah. So it happens, right? But that's when we get into the politics part of it. Oh, Swamy, thank you so much for reposting the stream. So grateful that you could join us this morning on Tell It All Tuesday. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into some of our news on all sides. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
At All Sides, we believe unbiased. All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And so we're looking more so at the news. Let's check out some articles here. So it says Trump sets new 10 to 12 day deadline for Russia-Ukraine peace deal. Now, he just made a major deal with the whole tariff situation in the UK in regards to NATO. So, while we're doing this, and of course, that deal came with, obviously making sure that Ukraine was going to be okay and making sure all these other things were in place. I'm like, okay, so now we're back to the peace deal. So I want to get this done because I'm really tired of a lot of what's happening around the world. I really want us to get, oh, you're so sweet. Unfiltered Vision News to 1,000 views. Our people need to hear the truth at all times. Oh, thank you so much, Unc. I really appreciate that. It'll be cool. Like I'm excited that 200 people are watching right now. I really am. And for all 200 of you watching, thank you so much for joining me here this morning. It's exciting, just to see our community grow, and definitely, send me a message or just let me know what things you would like to see or something that you've heard of that I haven't covered yet that I can investigate and cover, because I definitely want to share the best news possible. So President Trump announced he is shortening the deadline to end the Russia-Ukraine war from 50 days to 10 to 12 days, citing little progress made with Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, Russia fired an overnight barrage of over 300 drones, four cruise missiles, and 3 ballistic missiles in a continued bombardment of Ukrainian cities despite Trump's pressure for it to end. Trump said he was disappointed in Putin and that there was no reason in waiting. We just don't see any progress being made. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky praised Trump on X for his expressed determination in shortening the deadline. It doesn't crack me up, but it's like we got world leaders on a social media platform talking to each other. Like it's wild to me. The times that we live in is so wild. though, for the details, according to the Ukrainian, okay, I read that, sorry. So for context, Trump reiterated that if Russia fails to act, the U.S. will impose both sanctions and secondary tariffs on countries that continue trading with Moscow. On July 14th, Trump said he would implement severe tariffs on Russia, including threats of 100% tariffs on buyers of Russia exports unless a peace deal was reached by early September. So outlets across the political spectrum highlighted Trump's frustration with Putin. Associated Press Left wrote that Trump voiced some reluctance about imposing penalties on Russia and and quoted him saying, "I don't want to do that to Russia." Straight Arrow News Center cited the same quote, but said Trump was implying it was unlikely his administration would pursue further direct talks with Putin. A CNN left article emphasized skepticism, saying that Trump has routinely pushed back his deadlines. And Newsmax on the right quoted a White House spokesperson saying Putin thinks he's playing a good game of chess, but he's not. He's playing checkers. Trump is the only one playing chess. Another Newsmax article wrote that Russia's stock index dropped 1.2% after the announcement. We really just need to get back to a peaceful situation. Russia does not want this. This is a proxy war, absolutely. NATO against Russia, and the sanctions will not work because of BRICS. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, because they got a backup plan. It's like, okay, you can play if you want to, but Brazil, Russia, India, come on. They don't have to play anymore. And you're right, Sebastian. China, South Africa, they don't have to play these games. They can prop up their own system and work around you. But I understand that they want peace. But see, here's where NATO screwed up, in my opinion. They're like, yeah, we don't like Russia. They can't be in NATO, but we want to fight them. I'm like, y'all sound stupid. you sound crazy. You want to kick him out of NATO. You want to kick Russia out of NATO, but you demand that Russia works with you. You sound crazy. You sound like a crazy girlfriend. As Sebastian said, China and South Africa, yes, of BRICS. I'm like, come on. You sound like a crazy girlfriend. We need to not. Okay, so and then I saw this yesterday, and I was looking at this. Look, I don't know who Sydney Sweeney is. Apparently, she's causing a little bit of an uproar. And she says, "Great genes. American Eagle ad sparks eugenics debate." Now, it's very rare that you even see commercials from American Eagle. I mean, I haven't seen any in years. I honestly thought they were going bankrupt, because I just don't see the hype in who shops with them. I don't shop there. I mean, once my kids got out of the house, they, didn't shop there anymore. My oldest, she liked to go to, what was it? American Eagle. And there was another one, Urban Outfitters. And I forget the one that's like why can't I think of the name of it? I'll think of the name of it a little later, but they usually like have ocean stuff that they do. So everybody's outraged about this commercial. And I saw this little person, and I'm sure she's tiny. And she's just walking around in her jeans. And I'm like, okay, you really don't have that much of a body. I don't know what we're looking at. You're just a tiny human. But okay. But this is what people are into. And it says actress Sydney Sweeney's recent Great Genes advertisement for American Eagle has sparked a debate about eugenics. It's like, how do we get from that to eugenics? But here's how. So American Eagle and Sweeney, known for her role on the HBO City series Euphoria, are facing backlash for their jean campaign with the tagline Sydney Sweeney has great jeans. The collection features the Sydney jean, created in collaboration with Sweeney to represent domestic violence awareness. Okay. The campaign quickly ignited a debate online around the controversial topics of eugenics, with critics arguing that the campaign promotes unrealistic beauty standards and, and idealized genetic traits. Huh? Old Navy? No. You know what? It's not Old Navy. I was thinking of Hollister. That's the place. It's called Hollister. And Hollister has they're like really much so like American Eagle, but they have more of a Pacific Coast style, right? And they all, if you ever go into their store, you'll see the big gigantic screens, and they'll show surfing competitions and different things like that. But it was Hollister. So interesting. Like, how do we get from genes to eugenics? All right. So eugenics is the belief in improving the genetic quality of the human population through selective breeding. The term was coined in the late 19th century and has been used to argue for a broad array of practices ranging from parental care for mothers deemed genetically desirable to the forced sterilization and murder of those deemed unfit. It has been widely discredited and is associated with many atrocities, including the Holocaust, right? And they actually, right, exactly. Genes, that's what they're comparing it to, right? If you're really digging into that. And the whole thing about eugenics, it was actually a American program that was brought up over here and then implemented over in Europe, right? That's where you get that whole keeping the pure race, the Aryan race, and all that other craziness. Y'all, nobody's pure. Stop it, knock it off. It's never been that way. And there are people that have good genes, and there are people that unfortunately don't have not so great genes. But so what? I'm like, this is what we're arguing over. Like, this is what we're arguing over. Seriously. So this is how the media covered it. NBC, that leans left bias, highlighted the backlash and defense the campaign received online. It framed the debate with a broader cultural shift towards more traditional and conservative beauty ideas gaining traction in mainstream media. The New York Post, that leans right, framed the backlash as an overreaction from the leftist TikTok and the woke mob. It contextualized the controversy within a pattern of left-wing scrutiny of Sweeney's public image and included that American Eagle stock has surged by nearly 17%. So Newsweek, that center, quoted advertising experts who criticized the great jeans pun as historically loaded. It also connected the controversy to a pattern of scrutiny around Sweeney's perceived alignment with the conservative symbols in pop culture. I mean, really? We're doing this? I mean, she's, like I said, she's a cute, tiny person. I was just kind of like, okay, she's selling jeans. And she's actually trying to do it for a good cause. And that's just getting missed on people with all of this. I'm like, she's trying to bring awareness to domestic violence. I'm like, wow, thank you for doing that. Oh, and thank you, Sean AI, for reposting the stream. But it's almost like, and this might sound funny, y'all. People just want something to be mad about. You just want something to argue about because you can't. Because you can. Not because you want to, not because you have to, because you can. And that's just crazy to me. I'm like, wow. We got so much going on in the world. You want to argue? Look, y'all. This is what everybody's up in arms about. She looks like somebody that popped out of the 70s, late 60s. You know what I'm saying? She's got that whole boho, natural long hair situation going on. Bell bottoms. Let's talk about that. I don't think bell bottoms will ever go out of style. It depends on who's wearing them and who looks good in them. And like I said, she's a tiny human, if you've seen the commercial. But it's just finding it fascinating that really now she's a Nazi from the right. Sweeney's American Eagle ad slammed as Nazi propaganda. Really? And then on the left, it says American Eagle sparks backlash for touting Sydney Sweeney's great genes. Okay, they're not really touting her genes. They went into collaboration with her to design the jeans. She designed some bell bottoms. Bell bottoms been out forever. What? Are the pockets different? I don't. Let me walk away from that and get on to this one. So judge blocks federal funding cuts to Planned Parenthood. You know, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But y'all want people to die. You just want to kill people in the womb. Just say it. You're into murder. You're into, mass genocide. You're into it. You love it. I just need people that want to block that talk about, blocking the federal funding cuts to Planned Parenthood. It's because you want Planned Parenthood to keep doing what they're doing. They really don't need any federal funding because, unfortunately, they probably are still selling baby parts on the black market, which needs to stop, by the way. Yeah, they need to stop doing abortions because that's what they do with these babies. That's what they do. They sell the body parts. They sell the organs. That's what they do. Period. And they should never get a dime of anybody's money. They're not doctors. They don't help people. They don't. I'm going to say it. And a lot of people, Planned Parenthood. No. Then why are they only in minority communities if they help everybody? Why aren't they in Beverly Hills? Huh? And I'm just using California as an example because that's how I grew up. Yeah. And Sebastian says they are sacrificing their children to Moloch. Yeah. This is a long tradition. Exactly. Absolutely. And I don't want any of my tax dollars going for it. If y'all want to do devil worship on your own, you're on your own. Sorry, I'm out. So a Massachusetts district judge, Indaria Talawani, blocked federal funding cuts to Planned Parenthood on Monday after ruling that the cuts are likely unconstitutional. Okay, so here we go. We got another advocate on the bench, y'all. Now, they were just told. You cannot stop the president from doing his job. This is part of his job. He can cut federal funding to anybody. NPR, cut. PBS, cut. And guess what? He can. He can do this. They don't have to send anybody any money. They don't. Planned Parenthood is not a hospital. It is not a doctor's office. It is, look, they can cut the funding. In my opinion, all of these wonderful little judges out here, they should lose their whole license. They should lose their law license because they're attorneys. Pretty much. Most of them that serve as judges are attorneys. And when I say that, it's because, a judge can be elected position and they don't necessarily have to have a legal background, but they can be a judge because they can be elected. Yeah. So the year-long cuts, a provision of Donald Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act, would have ended Medicaid reimbursements for all abortion providers that received over $800,000 in reimbursements in 2023. So obviously they met that threshold, right? So Talwani argued that they violate the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment right of association for Planned Parenthood services that do not pertain to abortion, and court documents also cited equal protection implications in the Fifth Amendment. The document stated the legislative history and context confirmed that the law's purpose is to single out Planned Parenthood and its members for punishment. The Department of Justice argued the bill merely stops taxpayer funding of big abortion and accused Tawani of unjustly pushing her personal bias into legislation. Yeah, she totally is. So crazy. So for context, Talawani blocked the provision for some Planned Parenthoods last week, but she expanded the block nationwide on Monday. Taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood, which included Medicaid reimbursements, reportedly reached $699.3 million in 22 to 2023. The attempted provision parallels the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits the use of federal taxpayer dollars for most elective abortions. These people are insane. So outlets across the political spectrum noted that Talawani was appointed by former President Barack Obama, but several outlets on the right, including Daily Caller, which is right bias, highlighted that fact in their headlines. CNN, that leans left, did not voice to support for the provision, while both the Caller and Reuters, which is center, did. Reuters was the only outlet of the three that noted that Talawani labeled the provisions as likely unconstitutional. They're not. Stop. When people want what they want and they bring the Constitution in it, I think they do that because they don't think people read. It's crazy. And Sebastian says these judges need to be impeached or have their funding cut. There is a separation between Article 2 and Article 3 powers. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's weird because they keep going after the legislatures and the executive office, and they're not even in the Supreme Court, because like the Supreme Court can't bring anything. Things are brought to the Supreme Court, but these federal judges, they're just like, they're like little gnats in the air that you have to keep swatting away because they're advocating from the bench. Yeah. They are being complete advocates from the bench. And they keep expressing their personal feelings. You know, when you're in positions like that, you're not supposed to have feelings. And when I'm saying that is, you can have compassion on the people, right? When they're bringing you their grievances, because that's why you're there. You are there to help assist in a grievance going on between two parties. As a judge, that is your job, right? You listen to both sides and then a determination is made. But when you insert yourself in your feelings, that's advocacy from the bench. That's trying to legislate from the bench, because you're putting these measures and these, injunctions and whatever else you're doing in place to try to force lawmakers to go along with you. If you want to be a lawmaker, why are you a judge? Run for Congress. I'm just saying, if that's what you want to do. But you need to stop trying to legislate from the bench and advocating from the bench if that is not the position. Like, be in the right position. You shouldn't be anywhere. You should, to your point, she needs to be impeached. Most of them do need to be impeached, and they need to have the law license revoked. They're dangerous people. They're dangerous people because they're using their positions in a dangerous way. They're not using their positions to help people. They're using their positions to promote and advocate their own personal will. There's just some people, they don't need to be in those positions or in those offices. It's It's not a good thing. Oh, okay. Ooh. This is what I was talking about earlier, the EU trade deal. And I just see the trade deal kind of affecting what's happening with Russia right now. So President Donald Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced on Sunday that the U.S. and European Union had agreed to a trade deal prompting biased coverage across the spectrum. So, for context, the deal follows months of negotiations. It will see the EU invest $600 billion in the U.S. economy, increase its purchasing of the U.S. military equipment, and buy $750 billion worth of American energy. In return, the U.S. will face a 15% tariff on European goods, which von der Leyen said was the best we could get. She did. She was looking in that interview like, I wish I could have done more, y'all. Trump went in there and was like, this is what we're doing. Right? Okay. I could just see that meeting, right? When he goes, I just want to be a fly on the wall and just see like him in some of these meetings going in there. You know, it's what we're doing, right? All right. Let's get it done. You know, I'm sure he's like a little bit more forceful than that, but he's just got that swag, right? So from the left, in an opinion marked by an analysis, Stephen Kalusian of CNN Opinion, which is left biased, framed the agreement as a win for Trump and the U.S., but ultimately a distraction from the intensifying questions over his handling of the Jeffrey Epstein controversy. Kalusian argued that the agreement averted a damaging trade war, but that the 15% tariff likely means American consumers will face higher prices in the long term. The Associated Press wrote that the deal wards off more escalation, but will raise prices and slow growth. It's going to raise our prices a little bit, but it's going to force people to buy more American products. So let's buy American. And what are we talking about? And this is a distraction from the Epstein files. Sir, he's doing his job. Epstein is the distraction. I could care less. Look, like I've said before, if you're going to really do this with the Epstein files, you got to take out everybody. I want all the congressmen. I want everybody in the entertainment industry. I want every single CEO of every corporation that was on the island. Done. Jail, prison. Let's go. Let's go. If we're going to do this, let's do this. Let's dog walk everybody. Huh? Yeah. Because you're not going to do that. Epstein is the distraction. This is what I voted for. I voted for getting the job done because I could care less unless you're going to take everybody out according, that were on the island. You going to take them out? You going to take out the heads of state? You going to take out like half of the royal family? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do this? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. The EU is trying to play the United States against China because almost all manufacturing is done in China. The EU is already backtracking from that deal. Yeah. Look, everybody put their chips on the table. And he took chips. He didn't ran. He took chips and ran. What you going to do? So the right... So Fox Business, that leans right, framed its headlines through the euro and investor sentiment rising as a result of the deal. Jim Geraghty, that leans right, of National Review, that's right, wrote, for free traders, it's not great, but it does at least provide some stability, assuming the president doesn't change his mind sometime down the road. Russia state media, RT, that leans right, highlighted that several French officials were upset with the EU's end of the deal. Yeah, because they're not getting a great part in it. It's not working well for them, right? Yeah. But again, I voted for get it done. And there were some people that wanted transparency with the Epstein files, the MLK files, the Kennedy files. People wanted that exposure. But here's my thing. Okay, so you get the files, but at the end of this, what is going to be done? Are you going to arrest the people that were involved with this? Because if you're not, then it's a waste of time, in my opinion. I'm not trying to belittle people that were subject to it, that were implicated and abused or whatever by what happened. But if we're not going to arrest people, what are we doing? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News on this Tell It All Tuesday. Tomorrow we have our Women in Wellness Wednesday, and it will be open mic. So if there's anybody who would like to join me on the show, please let me know, and I can send you a microphone so you can join me on Women in Wellness Wednesday. So thanks again for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you soon.